The Toyota Innova, it's been the defending champion of the Indian MUV segment for over 2 decades. And now, with the switch over to BS6 emissions regulations, Toyota has rejigged the model lineup of the existing Innova Crysta just a little bit. This change sees the Innova Crysta do away with the earlier 2.8-litre diesel engine that was only available in the automatic model. Instead, for this BS6 avatar, Toyota has decided to stick with the mainstay powertrain for the Innova, which is the 2.4-litre turbo diesel engine. So with this automatic model, the 2.4 engine now gains the 6-speed torque converter automatic gearbox, which was earlier available only with the 2.8-litre model. This change to the engine aside for the automatic model, all diesel models of the Innova now come with an SCR emissions control system, which includes a DPF. These changes under the hood aside, there are no changes to the existing Innova Crysta. So it looks the same, it feels the same, it has the same features and the same seats. Everything is exactly the same as earlier. But there are a couple of changes worth taking a look at from the driver's side of the cabin. So let me show you. So now the SCR emissions regulation system, or Selective Catalytic Reduction system, well, it includes a DPF, or a diesel particulate filter, the details for which you can read over here on that sticker. So this DPF, without getting too technical, essentially what it does is it's a filtration process and it's a filter in a sense of it. Now the DPF filter, however, can get clogged with all of the emissions coming out from the engine. So once it begins to get clogged, there is a warning light that comes on in the dashboard. I can't show you that now because, well, the DPF is clean right now. Now essentially when that light comes on, you're supposed to park the car in a safe location away from anything flammable. So do not park over dried leaves, dried grass, etc. So make sure you park at a safe location away from everything. And then you're supposed to press this button, the DPF button, for 2 seconds or longer. That's when the driver information display will indicate that the DPF burn function has been activated. When that happens, the DPF reaches very high temperatures and all of the soot and other materials that are essentially clogging the filter are then burned at that very high temperature. Now this function can take anything from 5 minutes to a little over an hour depending on how clogged the DPF filter is. But once this DPF burn function is done, well, the driver instrument cluster will indicate that and you're free to drive off again. But if your DPF filter is a little too clogged, you should be driving around with an ideal amount of fuel, because if you're going to be idling the car for half an hour or more, it's going to consume a little bit of fuel. Now this function of a manual DPF burn, well, it's not available in all cars and especially abroad, because what happens in countries with higher average speeds is that a DPF burn happens on its own automatically while you're driving at speeds anywhere between 100 and 120 kilometers an hour. Now that of course is not possible in a country like India, where our average speeds are much lower. And even our highway journeys may be impacted by slower moving traffic, congestion on highways, etc. So this is why the Toyota Innova diesel now comes with a manual DPF burn option. Right, so now that I've made you familiar with the BS6 diesel Toyota Innova and how to drive it, well, let's begin actually driving it and see how different it feels from the 2.8 automatic model. So on paper, this 2.4-litre automatic model develops 147 bhp at 3,400 rpm. That is 25 horsepower less than the 172 bhp at 3,400 RPM 2.8-litre engine from the earlier automatic model. And in terms of peak torque output, well, it remains an identical 360 Newton meters for both engines. However, in here, the peak torque output is developed between 1,400 RPM and 2,600 RPM, whereas earlier in the 2.8, that 360 Nm was spread out over a much wider rev band of 1,200 RPM to 3,600 RPM. That change aside, the good old 6-speed torque converter automatic gearbox is exactly the same as earlier, as I mentioned, and you continue to get eco, normal and power driving mode with this engine as well. So what does this translate to on the road? Well, I have to say that right from the get-go, I can just make out how much quieter this 2.4 liter model is. The engine in the 2.8 was an absolutely loud old school brew. It used to howl, and basically it was a very loud powertrain. So with the departure of that engine, the drive experience in this 2.4 liter model is much quieter. But that doesn't mean there's a complete absence of engine noise. Of course there is. This is an Innova diesel, so you do get that typical diesel engine note inside the cabin as well, and it gets louder as the revs go higher. But on the whole, the drive experience now, as I mentioned, is much quieter in here. This change aside, I can also feel the difference in the power output. It is actually a night and day difference. That 2.8 model was extremely powerful, and it was very trigger happy on the throttle. It used to just catapult you into the horizon. But now that's no longer the case. You still get quick acceleration, but that outright punch of the 2.8 is no longer there. So while I do miss that in the real world, this car should be more efficient than the earlier model. Now in eco mode, of course, throttle response is damped and you get a more comfortable driving experience. But hitting power mode now does not result in that instant punch in your back acceleration. Instead, there is a quick response, but it is a more linear one. What power mode continues to do, like earlier, is speed up gear changes under kickdown acceleration, and it also tends to hold gears longer at higher revs so that you have better throttle response at higher speeds or when you want to drive a little bit quicker. So this difference in the drive experience between the now discontinued 2.8 and this 2.4 model is the biggest differentiating factor between the two. Otherwise, there is no difference. Everything is exactly the same. The steering feels the same. The gearbox response feels the same as earlier. And all of the other inherent goodness of the Innova continues to remain in terms of the cabin space, seating comfort, and its long distance mile munching capabilities. Now, not too long ago, in June of 2020, I did an exhaustive comparison test between the diesel automatic Toyota Innova and the diesel automatic Kia Carnival, which is now its main rival. And to watch that video, click on the top corner here and watch the exhaustive comparison test to see just where the Innova stands in respect to the Kia Carnival. So the 2.4 liter diesel automatic Toyota Innova, well, it carries forward all those strong credentials from the earlier automatic model. Of course, it's lacking the 2.8 liter punch, but you'll probably get better fuel efficiency in the longer run. But what you do gain is far lower NVH levels, which will make those long distance commutes a little bit more comfortable and easier on your ears. The automatic gear lever, well, it's still clunky and old school, but you know what? It's bulletproof and faultless. So I'm sure owners of the automatic Innova will continue to enjoy lakhs and lakhs of stress-free and reliable motoring. It's still very comfortable. Ride comfort is the same as earlier. Handling is the same as earlier. And in essence, Toyota hasn't altered the winning recipe of the Innova. But as a BS6 diesel model, do keep in mind that the DPF burn function will need to be performed from time to time. For more details on kilometer intervals, etc. for the DPF burn, refer to the ownership manual of the Innova. That's all from me for now, but don't forget to watch that exhaustive review of the Innova in the link in the description below.